Vivride Bharatashrabha.
O chief of the Bharatas, when there is an increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms of great attachment, fruits of activity, intense endeavor, and uncontrollable desire are and hankering to develop.
Aprakasho pravritischa parmada moha evacha tamasi etani jayante vivride kurunandana.
When there is an increase in the mode of ignorance, O son of Kuru, darkness, inertia, madness, and illusion are manifested.
Yada satve pravridetu palayam yati dehabrit tadotam vidam lokan amalan pratipadyate.
When one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains to the purer, higher planets of the great sages.
Rajasi sangisu jayate tata pralina stamasi mudya yonishu jayate. Rajasi pralayam gatva karma sangisu jayate tata pralina stamasi mudya yonishu jayate.
When one dies in the mode of passion, he takes birth among those engaged in fruitive activities. And when one dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom.
Karma nashaptratyas yuhu satvikam nirmalam phalam rajasastu phalam dukam ajnanam tamasa phalam.
The result of pious action is pure and is said to be in the mode of goodness. But action done in the mode of passion results in misery, and action performed in the mode of ignorance results in foolishness.
Satpat sanjayate jnanam rajaso lopa evacha pramada moho tamaso bhavato jnanam evacha.
From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. And from the mode of ignorance, develop foolishness, madness, and illusion.
Urdvam gachanti satpatha madhye tishtanti rajasaha jaganya gunavrittista ado gachanti tamasaha.
Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the high planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in the abominable world of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds.
Nanyam gunebhya kartaram yada drastunupashyati gunebhyascha param veti madbhavam sodigacchati.
When one properly sees that in all activities no other performer is at work than these modes of nature, and he knows the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental to all these modes, he attains my spiritual nature.
Gunanetan atityatrin dehi deha samudbhavan janma mrityu jara dukhe vimukto mritamastute.
When the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life.
Arjuna Vacha Kerlinge Stringanan etan atito bhavati prabhu kimachara katam chetam stringunan artivartate.
Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, by which symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior, and how does he transcend the modes of nature?
Shri Bhagavan Vacha Prakasam cha pravritim cha mohameva cha pandava na dvesti sama pravrittani na nivrittani kankshati udasina yad vad asino Gona gona cha vichilyate gunavartan evam udasina vadasino gunayona cha vichalyate gunavartanta iti evam no vatistati nengate samadukha sukha samalostasma kanchanaha tulya priya priyo dhiras tulya nindatma samstuti Manapamanayo's tulyas tulyo mitrari prakshayaho sarvaramba parityagi Gunatita sa uchyate.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present or long for them, when they disappear, who is unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of the material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active, who is situated in the self and regards alike happiness and distress, who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is equal toward the desirable and the undesirable, who is steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treats alike both friend and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities. Such a person is said to have transcended the modes of nature.
Mamchayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate saganan samatityetan Rama bhojaya kalpate.
One who engages in full devotional service and failing in all circumstances at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman.
Brahmano hi pratishtaham amar yasya cha sasvastasya cha dharmasya sukhayekantikasya cha.
And I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness.
Hare Krishna. Thank you,
Thank you.
Shri Dham, Yash, and Adar for your recitation. It's wonderfully done. So we will now discuss a bit more on the verse. So let me make sure I have the right. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Here we go. So before we speak, we shall recite the Mangala Charanam prayers like we traditionally do to invoke auspiciousness. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadhi Paschachadeshatarine. The Prabhupada ki jai. So we have started yesterday reading this most important chapter, chapter 14, the three modes of material nature. Divyanam Prabhu requested me to do today's class, so therefore you are hearing me instead of him today. He's so busy at the moment with all of the arrangements and service associated with the book marathon that he requested that maybe today I can fill in for him and he will do tomorrow's class. He'll facilitate tomorrow's class. So yesterday, Divyanam Prabhu started the first verse of this chapter. And he requested me that he was unable to finish the main points of the chapter. I think he covered 4 of the 6 main points. So he requested that I complete those 2 remaining points, and then I can move on to the second verse of today's session. So that's what I'll start off by doing. I'll just read text number 1 again. Basically, in this chapter, it starts off with the Lord glorifying the knowledge that he's going to speak in this chapter. That's text 1 and 2. So in the first verse, Lord Krishna says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Again, I shall declare to you this supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained the supreme perfection." So in this first verse glorifying this chapter, the Lord is saying that this is the supreme wisdom, and it is the best of all knowledge. And we know, as we've recited the Sanskrit and English, that this chapter is all about the 3 modes of material nature. We've studied previously that how the living entity in this material world is bound. And one of the most powerful forces that bind the living entity to this material world are the 3 modes of material nature. At the dawn of creation, these 3 modes of material nature are manifested. And it is one of the strongest binding forces, together with the false ego and the mind, that keeps the living entity. So in this chapter, the Lord is describing in greater detail how the living entity is bound by the 3 modes of material nature, how it works, how we become free of it. And then towards the end, Arjuna asks a very nice question. He asks the Lord, how do we recognize a person who has become freed from the 3 modes of material nature? Like in our own spiritual life, in our own spiritual journey, we would have grasped that, unless we become free from the 3 modes of material nature, we will always remain in this material world. And spiritual progress will be sporadic as the different modes influence us and so on. And Prabhupada also says to be with the supremely pure, we ourselves have to become pure. Meaning that we have to transcend the 3 modes of material nature. So, different aspects of the first verse has been discussed by Divyanam Prabhu. I think he's covered yesterday till the point about attaining transcendental nature like my own. So transcendental knowledge, this knowledge has been proclaimed to be superior to all other knowledge. And I think Divyanam Prabhu discussed that yesterday. Now, without looking at the notes, how many of y'all or grasped or would like to say? Maybe some of y'all can take turns. I think in total there's There's 4 reasons given why this knowledge is deemed to be the best knowledge. Can anyone recall some of the reasons? I just discussed one of them now. Okay, not to worry. We shall discuss them together. So there's 4 reasons given, both in the verse and the purport. And the first reason is that this knowledge is superior, is being proclaimed to be superior by the Lord, because understanding the conditioning of the 3 modes is a powerful tool to assist one on the path of self-realization. Just like, say you want to achieve something. You want to build a shed. And you have a powerful impact driver. An impact driver is like an impact screwdriver. You see them sometimes in the DIY movies. So quickly they put the screws, zzz, 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 and quickly they build the shed. And if one has just a small manual screwdriver, you could be forever there screwing. It takes you a long time. It's so difficult. Your arms will pain. But if you have the right tool, if you have a powerful tool, then you can achieve something much quicker. So this knowledge of how the 3 modes of nature conditioned us, if we understand this, it's a very, very powerful tool in our own spiritual life and in our own relationships with people. Like, just give you some basic examples. We all are prone to act in a certain way depending on how the natures overcome us. And if we know what are the symptoms of the different modes, and we are behaving in a certain way, we can say, I'm coming under the modes of passion, or I'm coming under the modes of ignorance. And we can say, this is not good for me. I have to rise above the modes. Or if we see someone else becoming very angry or being lethargic or acting in a way, then immediately we can see, this person is simply coming under the modes of a certain mode of nature. And we do not judge that person wrongly. We can display some compassion to them. So this knowledge is so powerful in so many ways. Secondly, it is mentioned in this verse that many sages in the first verses have attained perfection and have been transferred to the spiritual world by this knowledge. Simply by understanding how the 3 modes of material nature bind us and how to transcend them, many sages in the past have transcended the 3 modes, and thus they have attained perfection and they've been transferred to the spiritual world. That's a second very important reason. And the third is, one can attain a transcendental nature like Krishna and thus attain liberation. And this has to do more with the second verse, where Krishna will say, and we'll come back to it. And again, in connection with the second verse, whoever understands this chapter 14 will attain perfection. So Krishna is saying, if somehow or the other we read this chapter 14 and we understand it, it can help us attain the platform of perfection. So this is indeed very powerful. And when I was reading this, I was thinking, all of the efforts that the devotees are now making in this book marathon to get Bhagavad Gita sponsorships, 30,000 Bhagavad Gita sponsored, and 2 million around the world, and this knowledge to be distributed to the people. If the common person can get Bhagavad Gita and read, even just read this chapter 14. Krishna says they can attain perfection. So I'll now move on to the second verse, which is really covered by points E and F. So text number 14. Idam jnanam upashritya mama sadharmyam agataha sargapi no pajayante pralayena vyatatanticha. Translation. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution. So Krishna is speaking some very powerful words here, the Lord. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. After acquiring perfect transcendental knowledge, one acquires qualitative equality with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, becoming free from the repetition of birth and death. One does not, however, lose his identity as an individual soul. It is understood from Vedic literature that the liberated souls who have reached the transcendental planets of the spiritual sky always look to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, being engaged in his transcendental loving service. So, even after liberation, the devotees do not lose their individual identities. Generally, in the material world, whatever knowledge we get is contaminated by the three modes of material nature. Knowledge which is not contaminated by the three modes of nature is called transcendental knowledge. As soon as one is situated in that transcendental knowledge, he is on the same platform as the Supreme Person. Those who have no knowledge of the spiritual sky hold that after being freed from the material activities of the material form, his spiritual identity becomes formless without variegatedness. So I'll just repeat that too. Those who have no knowledge of the spiritual sky hold that after being freed from the material activities of the material form, this spiritual identity becomes formless without variegatedness. However, just as there is material variegatedness in this world, in the spiritual world there is also variegatedness. Those in ignorance of this think that spiritual existence is opposed to material variety. But actually, in the spiritual sky, one attains a spiritual form. There are spiritual activities, and the spiritual situation is called devotional service. That atmosphere is said to be uncontaminated, and there one is equal in quality with the Supreme Lord. To obtain such knowledge, one must develop all the spiritual qualities. One who thus develops the spiritual qualities is not affected either by the creation or by the destruction of the material world. So as we were saying before, this second verse is another glorification by the Lord of this knowledge. So twice in two verses, the Lord is glorifying. So indeed, this knowledge must certainly be most powerful. So let us look at a few pertinent points of the verse and purport. So the first important part of the verse, which Srila Prabhupada dedicates a large proportion of his purport 2 is the statement that one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. So Krishna is saying by becoming fixed in this knowledge. And it's interesting, the first line of this verse is idam jnanam upashritya, meaning by taking shelter of this knowledge. That's the word for word translation. But Srila Prabhupada has interestingly translated it as by becoming fixed in this knowledge. Because by nature, taking shelter of this knowledge means one becomes fixed. There is no question of having taken shelter of this knowledge and not being fixed in this knowledge. And there's a specific meaning of being fixed in this knowledge, meaning that this knowledge has become part of one's consciousness. One lives one's life by seeing through this knowledge. As I was explaining before, when one understands this, then one can translate one's everyday activities and the actions of others through this knowledge. And this gives one clarity. Clarity how one sees one's own life and action and how one sees the world. And Krishna says, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. So Krishna in this first line is giving, in one sense, equal status to himself of one who has attained this knowledge. And Srila Prabhupada explains this equal status very clearly. And those who have caught this purport, can in your own words, can someone explain how Srila Prabhupada has explained Lord Krishna giving equal status to himself of one who has attained this knowledge? Can someone explain in their own words what this means? Anyone?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, this is Rupesh. So,
Hare
Prabhu,
Krishna.
I think Krishna is saying then once anyone who attain this knowledge and situated themselves in this knowledge, they become part of him. So we are actually part and parcel of Krishna, but we realize that we are actually part of him, not separate from him.
Yes, I think you've come close to it, but there's just some clarity lacking there, which would be, would you like to explain? Prabhupada contrasts two understandings of becoming part of Krishna.
Yeah.
One
So,
understanding, Prabhupada clarifies it. He says there are many people think that this meaning of this statement is one becomes one with Krishna. Is that what you are saying?
realizing that we are already part and parcel, we are connected with Krishna, but
Yes.
we are not realizing it. We have not experienced it.
Yes.
But in situation with being in perfect and realizing this knowledge, then we can actually realize this, that we are not separate entity. We are part and parcel.
Okay. I'd just like to clarify when you say not separate entity.
Yeah, so we like to relate ourselves with the material world, like
Yes.
this is my house, this is my son. But
Yeah.
once we situate ourselves in this knowledge, then we don't relate ourselves, we don't identify ourselves with these identity, but we identify that we are actually connected to God.
Thank you. Thank you. I understand. Thank you for that, Rupesh Prabhu. Yes, that's a nice explanation. Anyone else would like to say how they understand Krishna giving equal status to someone who understands his knowledge?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I just tried with my lack of very minimum understanding of this whole Bhagavad Gita thing. I think this is that because the Krishna was playing as a part of human, and he was doing all those activities like whosoever needs to does the devotional service as his daily routine as well. So that's why
Mhm.
that if somebody become fixed in those knowledge which he was performing when Lord Krishna was in on this earth, and then one can attain exactly like his transcendental nature which he was performing as his pastimes.
Mhm. Mhm. That's
That
a
is what I understood, Prabhuji.
yes, yes. That's a nice explanation. If I have understood you correctly, yes, Prabhu. Anyone else would like to say?
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Jai Shri Mataji.
As I understand it, we can attend. It means that we can transcend the material platform.
Yes,
We can never be as same as Krishna, but we can
yes,
become more spiritual.
yes,
That's how I understand it.
yes, yes. That's a nice explanation. Someone else was wanting to say also?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
This is Tripta.
Hare Krishna.
I mean, as I understood from Srila Prabhupada's purport, is he's stressing on the point that we can become qualitatively one with Krishna, but like the impersonalist thing that we cannot merge into him, like the Brahmajyoti. So he's, I think, stressing on that point particularly, that
Yes,
feeling a bit, yeah. So
yes.
that's what I
Thank you.
was saying.
That was the word I was looking for. You know, we are qualitatively one with Krishna, meaning the Lord is completely spiritual. He is above material nature. And we being part and parcel of him, as Rupesh Prabhu says, we are also of the same spiritual nature. Qualitatively, we are of the same spiritual nature. As Prabhupada gives the explanation, if you take a drop of water from the ocean, that drop of water will have the same qualities of the ocean. It's liquid, it's salty, the same properties it'll have, but the difference is in the quantity. The ocean is unlimited, the drop is very limited. So when we transcend the material modes of nature, by understanding this knowledge or becoming fixed in this knowledge, then we attain to our original spiritual nature, which is part and parcel of Krishna. That is what Krishna is saying here. When you understand this knowledge, you will attain a nature similar to mine, like my own. So that is what Krishna is saying in this verse. So that's extremely, extremely powerful. Extremely powerful. And what is the result of this? The result is, Krishna says, thus established, just like Krishna never takes birth at the time of creation, and Krishna is completely unaffected at the dissolution when he incarnates as his Purusha avatars. So in the same way, we, the Jiva, the Atma, having transcended the three modes of material nature, it is guaranteed we will never take birth again. We will never have to experience another creation and another dissolution. Our situation is for an infinite number of years. We've experienced so many creations and we've experienced so many dissolutions because we are called Nitya Bada, eternally conditioned. But by understanding this 14th chapter, Krishna is saying, finished. You will not have to experience another creation and you will not have to experience another dissolution. So this very powerful knowledge, this is we are receiving. And Krishna uses the word mama sad aryam agataha. And then Krishna says sarga means creation. Sargapi nopa jayante pralaye na vyantanti cha. We won't have to experience this. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada makes one interesting statement. He draws the distinction between contaminated knowledge versus pure knowledge. And just before we finish, I'll just go through this one statement. Prabhupada says, generally, in the material world, whatever knowledge we get is contaminated by the three modes of material nature. Knowledge which is not contaminated by the three modes of material nature is called transcendental knowledge. So just imagine an hypothetical situation that one can put all the books that have been written by mundane people, meaning people who have not experienced spiritual knowledge. We put all of those books together, all of the books of the world that's been written. And imagine we have the capacity to understand and memorize all of the books written by all men and women of the world, contemporary men and women. Prabhupada says here, none of that knowledge can enable you to transcend the material world, because all of that knowledge is contaminated by the three modes of material nature. Any book that is written by a contemporary person, let me just see if I have, okay, I have a book here. It's called Raising Boys. I bought this book because I wanted to raise my son with some knowledge. Why boys are different and how to help them become happy and well-balanced men. So all of this knowledge, yes, it is knowledge. But all of these writers, they were either situated in the mode of goodness or the mode of passion, maybe some in the mode of ignorance, like, Hitler, or even some famous writers have written some dark novels. All of the knowledge they have written is contaminated to some degree by the modes of nature. That means all of them experience some covering when they penned these books. Therefore, all of these books of the material world can never really help any living entity transcend the material world. Only pure transcendental literature, which has been passed down from the Lord through the unbroken chain of spiritual masters, can help one transcend the three modes of material nature. What this does for me is to put into perspective how important these literatures are that we have received from Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas. It is only this knowledge which is free from the contaminations of the three modes of material nature. And it is only this knowledge that can free the living entities who are trapped in this material world. Therefore, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur once said, if by some great calamity, all of the books of the world burn down, and there's only one book that remains, Srimad Bhagavatam, he said, still there will be no cause for lamentation, because simply if one studies the Srimad Bhagavatam, one can achieve the greatest success, the greatest goal in the human form of life. So this knowledge is so powerful, so important. So we have passed 8:30. I'll stop here. I'll take any questions, comments, or reflections that any of y'all have. No questions, no reflections?
Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji.
Yes. While we can transcend the modes of the material nature in this material world, then we can attain the position of the Krishna, or is it after we have passed away, after we are merged with after we are no more?
No, even while in this body, Mataji, while even in this body,
Mm-hmm.
we can come to the stage of sattva gun. So the three gunas are a tamagun, rajagun, and sattva gun.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a nature, there's a level even above the three gunas, which is called Suddha Sattva, the mode of pure goodness. Yeah. If we practice our spiritual lives very nicely, if we practice our Krishna consciousness very nicely, if we surrender, Prabhupada says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, a beautiful purport he gives. He says by complete surrender to the spiritual master, the disciple can immediately transcend the three modes of material nature. So even while living in this body, even this world, it's possible to transcend the three material natures. And therefore Krishna says, even while living in this body, one can become liberated. It is possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Hema Mataji.
The lady wants to say something.
Oh, Vishalini Mataji.
No,
Let
you
her do
carry
it.
on. No, you carry on, Hema.
Okay, Mataji. Very well. So, Prabhuji, understanding the modes would also help us to sort of forgive and tolerate more, isn't it? Understanding.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It will
So,
definitely help us become more compassionate. Because
yeah.
when we see in this material world, we see so many living entities acting in so many ways. Yeah? And some of them seem apparently irrational. Some of them may tend to want to make us become angry and resentful of them.
Yes.
But if we can understand, that soul is a pure soul in that body.
Yes.
But being influenced by the modes of nature, they are behaving in this way. So it will help us to become more tolerant because we can see that these are simply manifestations of the influence of the modes of nature. So you're correct. It can help us relate to the world, to see the world with more clarity and more compassion.
But we need to be more clearer of how we work under the modes to understand other people.
Absolutely. Even in our own lives, we can see how at different times we are coming more under the different modes. And the moment, like say, suppose we are becoming angry or frustrated, or we're becoming lethargic and we just want to sleep or something, we can say, I'm coming under the modes of ignorance here. There's something that's I'm not in tune with my spiritual life. I need to up my game a bit.
Yes.
So in this way, by be conscious of all that's explained in this chapter, we can advance in our own spiritual lives in a more profound way.
Okay, thank you. It's such a, I've always read it very mechanically, this chapter, and putting such a wonderful light into it. The depth of it is sort of so nice to understand it the way you're presenting it. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. But linked to Puja Mataji's statement that she made, achieving Vasudev to realize Vasudev. Is that the same thing that Puja Mataji was saying, that we need to realize the Vasudev status or the mode within us to realize Vasudev?
Yes, that's what she's saying. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I was just thinking that these three modes of material nature is so much it will be so much helpful in mental health. Like mental health is a big issue in so many countries now, and this three modes of material nature is like gives us in-depth knowledge of why some people act in certain ways, why we are, everybody is acting in under the three modes unless one is self-realized. So it can give us so much understanding, and obviously, as Hema Mataji said, that we can be more compassionate, forgiving, and all the good qualities that Krishna describes in mode of goodness and pure goodness, that will manifest if we really understand this knowledge and imbibe and abide by this knowledge.
That's so important what you've just said, because Srila Prabhupada says to obtain this knowledge, one must develop all the spiritual qualities. He says that twice at the end of this purport. So yes, definitely, Rupa Mataji. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Vishalini Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Sorry.
Oh, it's Meena Mataji. Can I let Vishalini Mataji go first, and then I'll come back to you because she was trying to make a point at the outset. Vishalini Mataji, you go first.
The transcendental nature, is that the 64 qualities that we should have? Is that what it is?
Yeah, the qualities that I was also looking at that verse when it says the spiritual qualities, and my mind firstly went to those qualities that were described in chapter 13.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And it's not the Sahuja Mukti we are talking about.
No, no.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, we're not talking about that. Meena Mataji, you wanted to have a question or reflection?
Sorry, yeah, Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, I just want, like, here it's like, so even after liberation, the devotee did not lose their individual identities.
Yes.
So what exactly, like, I didn't get it. What
Okay.
exactly mean?
See, each of us, we have a certain relationship with the Lord. Everyone has a unique relationship. It's called Swarup Siddhi. Some of us may have a relationship with the Lord in the Vaikuntha planets as servant. Some of us may have a relationship in Goloka Vrindavan as friends, as lovers, as parents. So there are so many varieties of relationships that Krishna has with each living entity. And each of those relationships are very unique, absolutely unique. So say, for example, yourself, Meena Mataji, you have, well, like now you have a certain body, an Indian body, the body of a woman, and you relate according to that, but you know that that's not your real nature. That's just a temporary identity you've taken on. But you have a permanent eternal identity also. Each of us has a permanent eternal identity with the Lord. So perfection of spiritual life means we come to the point of realizing that eternal identity and reestablishing ourselves in that eternal identity. So that identity can never be changed. It's eternally, it's fixed, that relationship with Krishna. It never alters at all. So when we reach perfection, it is when that identity becomes completely revealed. And then we interact with the Lord in that relationship with him. That's what it means. Is that clear? Do you understand what I've said?
Yeah. So like as you say, like when Krishna has taken, like, just like Goa, like Gopal, and like when his friend is just come, like
Yes.
something like that, like Gopi
Yes.
and then Gopa. And, okay.
Yes. That's what it means. Krishna is incarnations, either as Lord Ram, Lord Nishinga, even as Lord Jagannath. Krishna has unlimited incarnations. It could be that our identity, eternal identity, is in a relationship with one of those identities. Like there is a spiritual planet called Ayodhya Dham, where everyone relates with Lord Ram in as the eternal nature. Like Lord Hanuman, his eternal nature is Hanuman, even in the spiritual world. So that's his eternal nature.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, by knowing about the modes of the material nature, about how the other person is acting, maybe in a mode of ignorance, we can understand them, we can sympathize with them, but in what way we can help them to transcend that mode? Because as you say, we can help people with the mental health, but unfortunately we can't have our views on the NHS, impart our views on those people so that they can change in a way or spiritually.
Yes, Mataji, that is a wonderful question you asked. A very nice question, and it's a question that shows your wonderful compassionate nature of wanting to help others. So Srila Prabhupada says, when one engages in transcendental activities, one is immediately raised to the transcendental platform. And the more one engages into transcendental activities, the more one becomes fixed on the transcendental platform along the above the modes. So the more people can hear the holy name, the moment the soul hears the holy name, the sound vibration goes through the ears, it touches the heart and the soul, then immediately their consciousness is lifted up above the modes, even if it's just for a short time. The moment someone takes Krishna Prasadam, their consciousness is raised above the modes because Krishna Prasadam is spiritual. The moment someone hears Krishna Katha, ye Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, when they're hearing, they are lifted above the modes. So to answer the question, the more we give people Krishna consciousness, the more people take to Krishna consciousness and engage in Krishna consciousness, the more they will come out of the material modes of nature. Because as I was explaining before, all the other knowledge is contaminated by the modes. It is only this activities of Krishna consciousness, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Dasyam, Archanam, Atmanivedanam, all of these activities, they will elevate. So giving them Krishna consciousness will take them above the modes. Does that answer your question, Mataji?
What I'm saying is that I work on the NHS.
Yes.
We can't impart this type of a knowledge to the patient who is sitting in front of me, saying that he may be like, say, an Englishman, or he may be of Afro-Caribbean nature. We cannot impart our own views on this other person. So this is what I'm, with other people, yes, with other family or other people whom you meet, you can teach them about Krishna consciousness, but somebody in your professional, I think there's no way that we can tell them that this is what it is.
Okay, you use two words there. One is impose. You're right, we can't impose. And someone of a mental disposition also with mental illness, there's slightly other factors involved. But Prabhupada says actually everyone in the material world is crazy. Because generally, a crazy person is someone who has a perverted understanding of life.
Yeah.
You know, they think, you know, they are someone besides themselves. So we are thinking we are the material body. So Prabhupada says all of us in this world, we're crazy. So that's one point. And the second point, you use the word impose. And you're quite right, we cannot impose this knowledge on everyone. But what we need to realize that you use like some categories of people, I think you said an Afro-Caribbean person or an English person, if I'm not mistaken, you can't impose. But just think that those are just coverings. Those are just bodies, but inside that body is a soul. And that soul has a certain nature, just like water is always liquid. The soul is always spiritual, and the soul always comes from Krishna. So knowledge, therefore, when we are trying to promote this well-being pack, what we are saying there is saying we are not trying to promote any particular religion by promoting the Bhagavad Gita. What we are trying to teach you is some universal principles. Whether one is black, one is African, one is Chinese, it is not that the three modes of nature does not act on someone in Africa. It is not that the three modes of nature acts differently on someone from China. The three modes of nature is an intrinsic part of the material world, and it acts on every person in the same way. So this knowledge, irrespective of what cultural background they come from, the knowledge that you're giving them is universal. And if someone accepts it with an open mind, they all can get the equal same benefit from this knowledge. That is the point.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, you made it quite clear that external coverings are different, but internally they're all the same.
Absolutely. And the modes of nature, as Prabhupada says, when the sun shines on America, it's not an American sun. If it goes on in Africa, it doesn't become an African sun. When it goes on China, it doesn't become a Chinese sun. The sun is the sun. And the same with the modes of nature, and the same applies to the nature of the soul.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, can I add something? That I know a doctor in the NHS who distributes books to his patients. Just take this, read it, and see what you think of it. Next time I see you, you can maybe talk about it. So I was just saying to Puja Mataji that as a professional, if she can't do anything, then at least give a small one of those small books for the patient to read and then maybe reflect on it.
And tell them we're not trying to convert anyone. I read something very interesting. Prabhupada says he never envisaged that every person in this world will become a devotee.
Yeah.
He said the Christians will remain Christians, the Muslims will remain Muslims, but what they will see is this knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita will give them a new perspective of their own religion, and they will practice that religion in a better way.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, very right.
Can I just add, I work for the NHS as well and in mental health.
Yes.
And I think it's against the ethical rules to introduce these books. You can get into trouble. If you're a doctor and you practice in specialist area, that's a bit different, I suppose. You have a bit more power in that sense. But we're not allowed. I mean, I have checked it out as well several times. But the code of ethics is against that.
Yes.
So we must be careful. Although, I mean, there are room when you talk to people, you know, about there's something else available if they find life hopeless and there's nowhere to turn. And, you know, they're going through very severe troubled times and like this. I mean, like I spoke to my the priest in my NHS organization, and he's accepted it because he can go around and distribute them, you see.
Yeah, I think some devotees now are being ordained as chaplains.
Yeah, that's right.
As long as you're ordained as a chaplain,
yes,
and you don't try to do anything with the ultra purpose of conversion, you're simply teaching universal principles of religion.
Yes,
and then it's fine.
Right.
That is
And,
universal. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and the chaplains see they employ multi-ethnicity group of people, so you got that opportunity to do it. You see what I mean? So because they're encouraging it.
Yes, I think we can do it, but we have to do it in a very discreet and then in a way that you know, people you know, this England is a very liberal country in one sense. If you look at it,
right.
they're very liberal, and you know, unlike many other countries, we are able to distribute this knowledge. It's just that we always have to present ourselves as we're not trying to convert. And Srila Prabhupada's mood was never to convert anybody. He just wanted people to become better in their own practice.
Well, you see, people have so many rights in any kind of practice nowadays. They said, that's my right. And if one patient open their mouth and say it to the wrong person, you've had it, you know?
Yeah.
And their reputation go down the drain. So this is why you have to be so careful in hospitals. I mean, I've introduced books to doctors.
Yeah.
And then they can help themselves and help the clients. So, you know, it's in a roundabout, as you said, discreet, in a very sensible, professional manner. You can't go wrong.
Yes. Thank you for those insights, Jolie Mataji. Those are very valuable. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I say something?
Yes.
Whenever I am approached by doing book distribution, I go quite regularly, and they ask me, is this a Hindu book, or is this, how will it help me? I always say this is universal. It will make you a better person. It is not meant for Hindu, Christians, or anybody. It's meant for everybody. You just read it and then come back. And some people have come back and they said they're twice born. And they say, yeah, it teaches us. And I always say, it's the relationship we have to build with the Lord, which we have forgotten. And as you are twice born, you will agree with me on this. Yes. And and I say it's an educational book. It's not meant for my culture or your culture.
Yes, absolutely. That's the mood and mentality we should always have, that we are distributing knowledge and we're not trying to convert anybody to any particular, not even our own faith, you know. Yeah,
And in the hospitals, I've given about 100 books up to now in one of our main hospital, and they always ask. So this year they went for 30, but we've done more than 100 books in one hospital.
Wonderful.
So yeah, but it's how we present.
Yes, yes.
Literally.
Wonderful. Thank you, Master, for sharing
Thank
that.
you.
Hare Krishna. All right, devotees, thank you so much for that nice discussion and your wonderful questions and contribution. All glories to your service. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhu.
so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji.